the very first thing I have to say is the disclaimer. This is just my personal thoughts. I'm not giving medical advice. We want you to consult your physician before embarking on any type of health and weight loss and fasting program, okay? That's the disclaimer. So the first thing, and it's really the most important, is your pursuit of God must be the priority. Your pursuit of God must be the priority. That's the foundation you have to build on. Because I talk to a lot of people in the health and fitness circles, and that's their focus. And it can actually become a god. It can become idolatry, and it's all about the body. And what about if God takes that body? What about if he gets sick? And we are decaying, we are dying on a daily basis. I'm not trying to be negative, but that's the reality is. The body's getting sicker as we get older. So it has to be built on the foundation of God and pursuing God. And then health and fitness become a lifestyle. That's where many people miss it. It's not a quick fix or a 30-day diet or a 60-day program. It's your lifestyle because you're stewarding the health that God has given you. And once you get those two things in order, everything else seems to fall into place. Because I've seen so many people, for those of you who don't know, I worked with 24-Hour Fitness. For about 8 years, I became a district manager. And so I oversaw all the personal training programs, all the weight loss programs. We saw thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You know what works, what doesn't, and why. You begin to really figure out just the basics, and it's really simple. And so I'm going to share with you what those are based on, biblically speaking, too. In the article, I gave you each a verse that will back that up. And I believe it's very important, especially as we get older, to steward this gift that God has given us. And when something happens, you realize just how important health is. When something when something happens to you, and then you realize, okay, I can't go, in our case, minister as well. I can't go to the hospital homes, or I can't be a better husband, a better father. I can't help people. I'm not at church more. And it begins to affect you spiritually speaking too, because the physical affects the spiritual aspect of who we are. There's just no way around it. So I'm going to just get right to the point, and this will take me about 2 hours to really fully exhaust them, but we're going to have you bring them up in Q&A. If you have any questions, Dr. Paul Brillhart and his wife are here. He's become a great friend of mine, so is his wife with Morgan, and just looking at the medical field through a biblical lens. And I think when you can marry the medical aspects with the holistic aspects, because they go together. Luke was a physician. Jesus is called the great physician. How many of you saying, thank God for some things that the medical industry has given us? Many things, from painkillers to antibiotics from time to time. These things have been a blessing. And ironically, though, a lot of things come from nature. Metformin, rapamycin, right? I think one of those was found in the soil of Eastern Ireland. The other one was found in lilac in France. Penicillin comes from amoxicillin from penicillin, which is in the soil, bacteria. So it's amazing that God has given us all these things for healing and health and just taking care of our body. So it's no wonder the world is completely against it. Fast food establishments on every corner. I don't know if I've ever went by Starbucks and there's not been a few cars in line. And so we have to take back our health. We really do. So number one, this is key. You have to embrace simplicity. Embrace simplicity, because the more complex it gets, the harder it gets. I get into how many grams of protein a day are you having, Shane? I'm not really sure. How many 4 ounces, 6 ounces? 8? Guys, I got to keep it simple. Keep it simple. God-given food, primarily living plant food. That's primary, living plant food. If it's living, like this morning, I had a couple eggs with some sprouts that were freshly alfalfa sprouts, broccoli sprouts with avocado, and it's living food along with prioritizing protein. And there's this whole debate depending again on who you listen to. That's why you just got to read God's word. I mean, you look at the food he made, the protein in avocado, in nuts, in I believe spinach and kale have high amounts of protein. Obviously, you have to eat a lot of them. And just how God designed us. We can get into the whole debate, of course, plants, we're how we were created in Genesis, and then God allowed meat later. There's a lot of speculation on exactly why he did that, and we don't know exactly. But we do know that many people give up plant food for, let's say, high protein or carbs when they should be eating the plants, the living food, the salads and the cucumbers and I'm not going to get into all those things. You guys already know, but my point is you got to keep it simple. Keep it simple, prioritize protein, plant-based, and also remove the addictive strongholds. That's what takes most people down. Have you ever just stopped eating after 4? Ooh, it's tough. That's tough. The chocolate starts to call your name. The ice cream, the donuts, that's what gets us. It really does. If you could just stop eating, eat great, good food, and stop eating after 3 or 4, you'd lose quite a bit of weight. You'd feel a lot better too. Not to mention your insulin sensitivity at night when you sleep. You don't want your body really processing a big meal because it's digestion. It's hard to get enough sleep. So again, bring up your questions at the Q&A, but keep it simple. Avoid the diet debates and focus on healthy, God-given plant food to the best of your ability. The simpler the plan, the higher the success rate. That's why with even counting calories or the grams of protein, if you just stopped eating after 3, for example, you wouldn't have to count calories. You wouldn't have to worry about certain things. It's the addictive things that are bringing in the extra calories. And by the way, those are usually the complex carbohydrates, the refined, the food that's killing us is what we are addicted to. So number 1, keep it simple. Number 2 is embrace moderation. Embrace moderation. Okay, we're going to get a little controversial. You guys ready? And even in the Q&A, Dr. Paul can even critique some of this. He can offer his thoughts on this because there are different views on this, but I think from time to time we need to embrace moderation. There are seasons of feasting, there are seasons of fasting, and it's biblical. Moderation is actually biblical. Lots of verses, when you find some honey, eat just what you need, not what you want, not gorge it out. And it talks about moderation. So how does it apply to us? Well, we do have to consume lower calories from time to time. By the way, this is controversial too. I've seen it 1,000 times. I've experienced myself. I've read studies on it from the National Academy of Sports Medicine, different things. If you're consuming more energy than you're burning, you will store it. Because you see all these things popular right now. It doesn't matter how many calories you eat. Even if you do a ketogenic diet, you eat too much, it's going to store. Protein can be converted to glucose and then stored as fat. And so this whole thing, it doesn't matter how it does to some degree. However, insulin plays a big role in that as well. Because if your insulin's always spiked, right, then insulin is a fat storage hormone, but it's also a muscle synthesis hormone. It plays a role in muscle recovery and your muscles growing as well. Insulin is incredible. And what we're hearing, how many of you have heard the insulin resistance? What's happening is we've inundated our body with so much carbohydrates that the cells are basically saying, stop, I'm resisting this. And so the answer is really fasting, better food, but many doctors say, here, take this drug. Or take some more insulin, this little needle right there. And you're actually putting in the problem. Now, of course, if you're type 1, again, I could talk on each one of these points for an hour. But you have to get to the point where you understand it's about moderation. And so I gave you some examples. Maybe you would try a couple low-calorie days. What I try to do, maybe 4 low-calorie days. You don't eat after 2. If these are 4, and then the next day or 2, you have higher calorie days. You're not worried about it. Your body's not getting used to a certain point because your metabolic rate will begin to drop because you're wonderfully designed by God. So as you consume less calories week in, week out, your metabolic rate, the rate by which your body burns calories, does slow down to accommodate the fact that you're taking in less energy. And you can, I think, up to maybe 25% less. Now, to me, that's not a big deal because I know how to get the metabolic rate going again within a week, and you don't live there necessarily. But what happens is many people go there, now they have a lower metabolic rate, if they're not careful, during this time, their muscle has been used, converted, gluconeogenesis, right, where your muscle will be broken down to be used for energy. And then now you start eating normally again, usually if you're like me, eating too much, when you start eating again. And now your body says, here's those guys, I want that fat again. And now the yo-yo effect, now you weigh more and you can tell I'm flabbier. What happened? So we have to be strategic, but to not let people know, hey, moderation, energy plays a huge role, the law of thermodynamics. But they're also right when they say it's not about calories, it's about insulin, because that's true. I believe you could probably get away with more on a ketogenic diet because your body's in a state of ketosis and fat is being used as fuel. But you've got to know what you're doing. You got to be strategic. And I found for most people, this works well. High calorie days followed by low calorie days, maybe a week, maybe one day a week you fast. That's why it's taking it to the Lord is so important. Let him show you, have peace about it, but you have to do something. You have to be proactive. If you don't do anything, guess what? You won't see any change. So moderation, you have to be moderate. 80% of the battle is the amount of food, not exercise. How many of you were not aware of that? I think we all are, aren't we? Once I heard this example, it forever stuck with me. I'll go on let's say an hour walk, right? Of 500 calories I burned. Okay. On my way home, I stopped at the donut shop and I just eat 500. In 1 minute, I just evened out an hour's worth of work. And so you start to really, there's something to this. It's the intake and the food intake. Now, I think after exercise like that, a really good God-given meal would be good. That would be the time to actually probably have some carbohydrates to replenish what you burned. And I saw in the gym, how many people have you seen people, they just exercise 6 days a week and they never change? It's because the energy consumption is not in a deficit. And that's just the truth. I mean, most people will tell you, most trainers that have worked with people tell you, once I can get my clients down, but again, you can't live there. It can't be about counting calories for the rest of your life. You've got to have a strategic plan though. Moderation is key. Again, going to bed on an empty stomach has many health benefits. This has helped me many times. Or just stop eating. You'll find out how much in control King's stomach is. In control when you do that. And usually the reason you're wanting sugary things is your insulin levels have been elevated. I personally believe, this is another big debate out there, again, who you follow, that breakfast is a pretty important meal. Now, many people go longer in the morning because they want to keep that fasted state going, which is good. I'm not against that. But for me, I like to eat something healthy in the morning, high protein, and then it kind of sets the course for the rest of the day, and then have my last meal earlier in the day. And I often, through scripture, you see that God fed Elisha in the morning with ravens and in the evening. You know, you see, and he would bring manna in the morning. They would go and they would gather it. And so we don't know exactly, but you can see, I guarantee we're not designed to snack all day. Any snackers? No snackers in here, or are you just not being honest? One time I wrote down, I eat 8 times a day. If you grab, you're a couple hours later, you just grab some nuts. What's the big deal? There's 300 calories right there. And then I go and I get an hour later, a big thing of blueberries and maybe a beef jerky. It's like, I'm just constantly eating. And every time you eat though, there is an insulin response. And so when they say insulin resistance, and really the problem with Alzheimer's, dementia, the heart disease, diabetes, they're finding that a lot of it has to do with the blood sugar levels and insulin resistance. For example, Dr. Paul can talk more about this too. I think they're finding that cholesterol wasn't the culprit they thought it was. Here's why. Let's say there's a fire here at this church, and the firemen show up, and they blame the firemen for the fire. Because that's cholesterol's job, is actually the high density, the LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol. The reason they're bad is they're on scene fixing the artery, where the good cholesterol removes the cholesterol back to the liver. So just because they're on scene doesn't mean they're the bad guy. I want to know what's creating that damage. And that's why they're thinking a lot of that is the inflammation from the processed foods and refined foods. I think just about every centenarian, do you know who those centenarians? They all have high cholesterol levels. Now, I'm not saying go eat bacon and ham and just use wisdom, take it to the Lord, but we have to, cholesterol is actually incredible. If you study cholesterol sometime, the health benefits are every cell in the body's affected. It's a delivery system for hormones. And so when you start to take, say, example, statins, which actually cause the liver to stop producing it, we're walking some really dangerous lines there. But again, take it to the Lord because there's so many different variables. Would I recommend a statin for certain people? Probably, right? You have to look at everything case by case. Number 3, all right, we're going to get controversial again. Embrace the fasted lifestyle. Don't get weird. Don't get weird about it like me. You don't have to get weird about it like me. That's my job to teach on it. But it's okay to tell your body no. The Jews would do it how many days a week? John Wesley had his pastors doing it Wednesdays and Fridays. You don't get caught up on it, like it has to become a legalism and things like that. But it's important. There should be a day a week that you just say, you know what? No. Or in the evenings. Because if you're not saying no, it's always telling you what to do. When we put the brakes on it, the flesh is controlling us. Okay, I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go buy Krispy Kreme. That sounds good with the big venti. And then after that, man, some yogurt sounds great. And then some In-N-Out burger. You got to get Chick-fil-A today because they're closed tomorrow. And if you think about it, all our fellowship events, pretty sure nobody's going to have nothing at the Super Bowl on the 8th. Anybody just having water on the Super Bowl? Probably. Right, so everything is focused and centered around food. And it's different if it's good food, but when it's the worst you can consume, the fasted lifestyle. It doesn't mean you fast all the time, doesn't mean you talk about it all the time, but it means like, okay, there's seasons where I'm telling King Stomach no, and I'm going to dethrone you. And I think biblically speaking, Jesus said, when you fast, not if, when you fast, and what does that mean? How? I don't know, but it's in the same context of when you pray, when you give, when you fast. So I'm kind of leaning on his side that it's between you and the Lord. It should be part of I think it should be part of a believer's lifestyle. Because if you're like me, if it's not, then the flesh is dominating. Eating too much, sleeping too much, staying at home from church too much. Your body will naturally gravitate towards comfort. And that the fasting plays such a role in helping with that. And also I could get into a lot of different things, but fasting has huge physical benefits as well. Do we even have that, Aubrey? Do we have that picture? I don't know if you guys uploaded it, of the first, I think it's one of the most, I don't know what the right word is, a detailed description of a cell in your body. Do we have that? Working on it. Okay. Well, if we have it, pop it up if we do have it, and then I'll go into that. But with fasting, not only spiritual benefits, the spiritual benefits should be pursued. Starving King Stomach, drawing closer to the Lord. And I don't know how it works. I just know it works. If I'm constantly feeding, it's like I'm feeding the flesh too much. But fasting is feeding the spirit. See, you're feeding one way or the other. You're feeding the flesh or feeding the spirit when you're out of control and just consuming too much. Oh, that's going to be hard to see, though, with that other stuff on there. That is a human cell. Wow. Dr. Paul, you can't speak up, but anybody know what that football is? Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. That's where they're thinking most disease. Even cancer is not genetic necessarily, it's metabolic. That's your human cell. Is that amazing? And I think that's a cell wall with things, and that's where the insulin is in signals and the layers and you can see they call it organelles and the different, it's just, if you study this, like one day I studied, it's so amazing. You can't even see this without a microscope. And this is God's design. And so that's where healing takes place, right there. The healing takes place in the cell. Thank you guys for getting that up. That's pretty cool. Once I saw that, I said, I have to share that because it's such an important thing. So again, ask your questions about fasting. But the fourth thing is embrace movement. Embrace movement. The more you move and exercise consistently, the better you'll feel. So I just gave you guys a goal to shoot for, 10,000 steps. It's actually not that hard, but it is if you don't make time for it. Every time I think I'm doing good, I'll look at my phone. I'm like, oh, that's 4,500 steps. Oh my goodness, that's like 2.5 miles. Jesus walked. The disciples walked. You were created to move. And so everything we do now, the phone, social media, TV, is counterproductive of how we were designed. And you actually feel better. You feel better as you're moving, endorphins and serotonin and chemical things that take place. You're getting some sun, vitamin D. Anybody need that right now? And so this movement, it's even biblical because you can get out and do things. So work up to 10,000 steps a day. We can get into resistance training. Of course, I would recommend that. This will really help too. Look at everything you're questioning online. Red light therapy, cold plunge. We can just intermittent fasting, high intensity training, walking, juice fasting, dry fasting, water fasting, this biohack, this thing. Look at design. How were you designed? We were designed to pick up things and lift. High intensity interval training, right? It's quick stuff. It's quick stuff. You're keeping the heart rate. You were designed to do that. It doesn't have to be the only way. It can be one of many other ways. Bench press, just 2 push-ups at home, maybe on your knees. You got to do because you were designed to lift up your kids and move, or rocks. And if you look at design, a lot of these things, for example, cold plunge. Okay, if you want to jump into something cold, do it from time to time. It's not the answer. Red light therapy, yeah, it works, absolutely, but you don't have to spend $3,000 on a thing you lay in. If you don't have the money, get some sun, how God created us. So when you go online, on Instagram, have you ever bought stuff on Instagram from their ads, just me? No? Oh, good for you guys. Okay, YouTube then. All right, YouTube, the older crowd. So, because we think this will help, and these things can help, but nothing is the answer. People even think all the supplements that are online, maybe we'll touch base about that. I've really cut back on my supplements a lot, but some things can really help, but also they're not the answer. Man, I just took this shot of fiber and I lost 10 pounds and this is the answer. Well, if you make no other changes, and then people get frustrated. They don't feel like they thought they'd be on a drug and feeling just great all the time. To feel great, it took you a while to get in this situation. It's going to take you a while to get out. It takes time at that cellular level. Things are changing. Things are adapting. You're withdrawing. Your body's reacting. It's removing toxins. So it's a process. I now look at things when it's difficult as a good thing, because it's what the body needs to cleanse and to heal. So you have to get moving somehow. Sometimes, let's say at the mall, I'll park way down past the Sears, and I'll go all the way, walking around the mall, go do all my errands. I get 2.5 miles just at the mall, but running an errand. Same with if I have to go to Sprouts, Lowe's, I'll walk around up at the aqueduct. You got to be strategic to get the steps in. At least movement. And I could get into all the different scientific reports on exercise. It's actually so powerful that they would take, they would even take somebody who's kind of overweight and smokes. If they exercise, they have a better chance towards longevity than the person who doesn't exercise and is in normal shape, in normal weight, because it plays that much of a role. And again, if you guys have questions about Ozempic and the big pushes right now, I know Dr. Paul will be anxious to answer those. I would love to as well. But you have to embrace movement. And number 5 is key. They're finding right now, the last 10 years or so, I'd say there's been a big push. When I was growing up, you thought it was cool that you didn't sleep that much. Right? Hardworking guy. Man, I only get 4 hours of sleep at night. I only get 5 hours of sleep. Like, it's almost no big deal. It's kind of in our way. because maybe it was just me, in my 20s, even sleep was in my way. Now we know that it's a restorative and rejuvenating and correcting thing that God has given us. This is when the body rests. If you don't eat right before you go to bed, your body can really heal. Things that are increased during that time: brain-derived neurotropic factor, cleaning the brain, autophagy taking place, cleaning the cells, and you should wake up refreshed. The problem is many people don't get into that deep REM sleep. They've got all the stimulus right on the TV, maybe too much caffeine right before they went to bed. And I love people say, oh, I'll fall asleep right away with caffeine. That's fatigue. That's not deep sleep. Deep sleep happens when your body's not being stimulated. So you can still fall asleep, but are you getting that deep recovery, that REM sleep? That's where recovery takes place. And believe me, I've been on both sides. You can wake up, you can look at the clock, it's 4:30, and I feel pretty good. I don't need my Christian crack this morning. That didn't kick in yet? Okay. That one didn't fly over too well. That went over like a keg at an AA meeting. But you have to embrace sleep. Again, these are my tips. Avoid caffeine after 10. Obviously, alcohol is terrible for sleep, electronics. And you have to look at sleep as something in your arsenal. This is where recovery takes place. This is where you can really redo a lot of the damage that was done. And then number 6, embrace discipline. Embrace discipline. Yes. Discipline is in the Bible. It's very important. We either experience the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline is hard for all of us, but it's critical for success. So begin by praying for strength and applying God's word. Here's a great thing about discipline and willpower. It's not like you're always, grin and bearing it and just getting it through. You begin to form habits. So once fast food was so tough for me, 25 years ago, now it's not even on the radar. It doesn't take any discipline to avoid it because I actually don't crave it. I'm just God is my witness. I craved what I told you this morning: avocado, eggs, sprouts with a little dressing. Like, I'm looking forward to that, not a big burger that's going to make me feel like garbage, because your body changes. Now there's other things that chocolate, peanut butter, right? We all have our little vices. Thank you, Matthias, for that word. But and they're fine, I think. Even dark chocolate has benefits. And so not getting so caught up in it, but discipline is so important because your feelings are like weather. You don't cancel your life because the weather is bad. And you have to remember that about feelings. There's never a right time for hard things. Successful people are not always motivated and fired up. I don't have these points because I just recently put them in my notes. Comfort is expensive. Discipline and willpower are the body's ability to get out of the comfort zone. And here's the good thing: you begin to feel better. Motivation fuels more motivation. Have you done that? You make the right choice, man. I feel good today. And that right choice needs another right choice. And then here comes the bad choice. Boom. And then we get knocked off course. And then we stay here and wallow in our pity party. But the Bible talks about just getting back up and moving forward, which is obviously the final point of encouragement. Embrace perseverance. Embrace perseverance. Fall forward and get back on track. Don't beat yourself up. Everything I've talked about, don't beat yourself up. Everything I've talked about today, I have messed up. And everything I just told you. Everything, just about. You think I do everything perfectly? Of course not. Nobody does. But it's those who get back up and they fall forward. They persevere. They keep moving forward. So with that said, we're going to have, I don't know if Ray's still in here or one of the guys. I'll bring up that table. And we're going to do the Q&A. I'll have Dr. Paul come up and he can tell you a little bit about himself.
Okay. I've been in medicine as a doctor. I'm originally a family physician. I've been in it over 45 years. And the Lord called me into medicine. I didn't want to be a doctor, but he called me in to be a healer. So I went to medical school, learned everything they taught me, and then went out. And in the course of practice, I realized there's a lot of things we don't know. We had no answers for. How did this person get this disease? Well, we don't know, but we have a drug for that. And it really annoyed me that everything was a drug, but we didn't have answers for it. So it seemed kind of natural just to pray and just to ask the Lord, well, why does this person have this, and what do I do? And lo and behold, he answered. And, it's like, go wash in the Jordan 7 times. Well, anyway, I did what he told me to with the patient. The patient got better, and I thought, wow, what else don't I know? Is there more? And one thing led to the next. I was doing things with gastroenterology, with stomach disorders, intestinal stuff. I was doing things with neurological problems. And anyway, it just went into all the fields, and you realized, wow, this is incredible. So he is the great physician. He is the one that designed us. And, just one little thing after another, I started to learn about this incredible vehicle that we have. And I realized, oh my gosh, we are the pinnacle of God's creation. Is there anything more complex than us? I mean, we actually have the human brain, and nothing can compare to it. And we're still figuring out things. And there were a lot of things that I was taught that the science was established, it was concrete, and I was indoctrinated into the dogma of modern medicine. But I am a healer, and I'm a healer for the Lord. So he's the first one I go to for answers on all this. So that was a while ago. But anyway, getting back to the vehicle analogy, when you think about it, how many cells do we have in our body? We have 10, 30 trillion cells. You can't count that high. That number is so big, you could spend your entire lifetime since the moment you were conceived, and you would never get a fraction of that number. So that's how many cells we have. Inside each one of those, we have hundreds, usually thousands of those mitochondria, those little footballs. And they are producing energy. And they started producing energy from the moment you were conceived. Lickety-split. And since I've been sitting in here, my body has made enough of those little ATP molecules that the mitochondria make. Now, this is just one little molecule, but it would take a lot. I could have 1 billion right there. Well, I've just created more than my body weight in ATP. Okay, so that's a lot. That's a number greater than we can conceive. And it's happening not at the speed of light, but pretty close. It's the speed of electricity, because we run on electricity, and those mitochondria are shooting that stuff out so fast. When you breathe, you're breathing in oxygen, right? What do you do with it? Oh, I don't know. Oh, well, it goes into your blood. It gets carried through the blood. It's carried on the red blood cells. It goes into the cells, and then it's going right to the mitochondria. The prime reason, this is what oxygen does. It goes in and it sucks one electron off, and it ends up eventually exiting the cell as CO2. You blow that out. The plants take it in, water, they put out oxygen, we breathe that in, and that's how it works. But we're using that oxygen for one purpose. We are not like those vehicles out in the parking lot. They are kind of like us, but on a very small scale. Of those trillions of cells with thousands of trillions of mitochondria, those are internal combustion engines. You're taking hydrocarbons and carbohydrates, it's carbon, hydrogen, both from CO2 and water, and the plants are taking the energy from the sun and converting it into those things. So now we have hydrocarbons, oils, fats, and we have carbohydrates. Those are starches and sugars. And we take those into our bodies, and then we're going to burn them but we have to convert them into that ATP. So at the end of this big, long, complex factory, we have this electron transport cannon, and it shoots it out. And that's why we're alive. At the very end of that, there's one little area where oxygen sucks that electron. And electrons are nothing more than the electricity coming out of your socket here. That's all it is. But it's just pulling one electron off, and that's it. And we're blowing it out. Okay? And we think, well, if you stop breathing, you die. Why do you die? It's not because so much the oxygen, that's true, but the oxygen is a reflection of the ATP. So if the ATP stops, you're dead. Okay? That's it. And that's the point, is all of those mitochondria, those thousands of trillions, okay, that is our life. So everything about health, every disease, and you mentioned cancer, okay? Cancer is mutated mitochondria. Now, there's a lot of various factors that cause that, but cancers don't operate right, and their mitochondria are sick and mutated. They don't process energy in the same way as other cells. But every disease, just about 90-something%, is due to mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, so my focus is on trying to get mitochondria healthy. Okay, and that's what I do. Now, everything you were talking about, that actually does have to do with mitochondrial dysfunction in one way or another, or I would say optimization of mitochondria. So we want to put out healthy energy. But everything we do in our society out here is we make mitochondria sick. So mitochondrial dysfunction, if you're talking about diabetes, that's mitochondrial dysfunction. Hypertension, it's mitochondrial dysfunction. Arterial sclerosis, mitochondrial dysfunction. Alzheimer's dementia, Parkinsonism, that's a unique form of mitochondrial dysfunction. It's all dealing with that. So if we can get the mitochondria to heal and come into wholeness, we can bring people back to health. We can allow their bodies to heal. And that was a new concept because I wasn't taught nutrition in medical school. So as I was going along, as I mentioned, I was learning more and more about using just natural means to heal the body. And I thought, wow, they never taught us that. But they did teach us in my first month of medical school that probably 80% of everything we're teaching you is going to be found out to be wrong during your career. And well, just teach us the stuff you know. They go, well, that's the problem. We don't know what is absolute and not. So we're just going to teach you what we think is the truth. So that's where we...
Also, not to interrupt, but they're about 20 years behind the curve. Like they're teaching things from 20 years ago.
So, yeah, our son he graduated last year from medical school, and as he's going through, he's going, Dad, they're 20 years behind. He said, they don't know what they don't know, okay? And he says, you can't question them and you can't bring up anything, but a lot of the data, we already have studies showing, well, that was 20 years ago. This isn't the case now. So anyway, I became a healer, became a nutritionist by default, just because that's what it's all about. It's just about healing the body. Mm-hmm. And you can do that without having to rely on medication.
Amen.
Okay.
All right, does that make sense now? And reminder, we have the vendors out there that you need to stop by and talk to them on your way out. And it's the medical field. Again, we love physicians. We have physicians go here, nurses, but they're not taught, many of them are not taught what's creating the problem. High blood pressure, here's a pill. Well, what's causing the high blood pressure? Shouldn't we start there? It's funny, just this couple days ago, I went to my normal physician here in town just to do my blood work. It just reminded me of the 1980s or 90s, because you had me order this full panel, and it's got particle size. He's like, I don't know why they do that. I don't think that matters. So I had to tell him, no, they're actually finding that the particle size is what determines what binds to the plaque, what causes the plaque. So he didn't know. He didn't know why the particle size was on the blood test.
Do you want to talk about that?
We could, sure, yeah, LP little a or, well, let's take the first question, then it should go into that. Okay.
Actually, I have two questions. The first question is lutein good for eye health, or is there a natural alternative to lutein?
You mean leucine, amino acid?
Lutein, yeah. Yes, it is. And that's usually people are asking about macular degeneration and trying to prevent that. But there's astaxanthin and zeaxanthin and lutein, and there's a number of antioxidants. There's a lot of research. Are you asking about macular degeneration prevention?
No, the last time I had my eyes checked, they recommended that because I have a floater in my eye.
Okay, so yeah, floaters. Floaters are very. They don't have anything really substantial to offer for floaters. Okay, they're just going. Well, they're just there. The only thing I've seen, and I haven't used it myself for specifically for a patient. It's not something that people complain about a lot, but it's DMSO, and that's very controversial, and most practitioners are not going to be aware of it. And my gosh, that's opening up a can of worms. But I've seen many other doctors report that the floaters disappeared in these patients. They weren't expecting it. They were using it for something else, but their floaters disappeared. And the same thing is true for macular degeneration with the DMSO, improving eyesight and improving overall eye ophthalmological function. But have you heard of that? Okay.
Thanks, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
yes.
So the lutein is very good. I don't know about for treating floaters, but it's very good for the retina and improving the function there.
Just anybody else? You can put up your hand. Luis can find you. Matthias. Oh, let's go right here first, and then go over to Matthias.
I just want to know what
DMSO.
Oh, dimethyl sulfoxide. It's a very simple molecule. It's derived from certain trees, and it's purified, and it's been around for many decades. And the first time I heard about it was in 1969, when I was running track in high school, and these guys were talking about using this. Well, they use it on horses. It's a horse liniment, and I go, wow, that's crazy. But it was for inflammation. And they would tell me how you just put it on and you can actually taste it. Okay, you put it on your heel and you taste it 5 minutes later. It really absorbs quickly, so it can be used as a solvent. But at that time, I remember hearing about this from the FDA, and they said, "Oh, this is dangerous stuff, and it causes blindness in rabbits." None of that was true. And it was really sad. You can Google this and look up. I think it was 1980. It was 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace, and he was kind of doing a little expose and interviewing all these people. Incredible cases where DMSO was used for a lot of things, including cancer, neurological conditions, and he had the FDA guy on there and saying, well, it doesn't look like there's any safety issues at all. And he had to admit, it looks pretty safe. And my gosh, it's really effective. So how come you can't approve this? Well, the only type of evidence that we will accept are double-blind, randomized, controlled placebo studies, and we're not going to approve anything. So you could have 10,000 case reports. Doesn't matter. That's not what qualifies. Mm-hmm. So who's going to do this? Who's going to fund, to get something approved that is generic? You can't patent it. And so no one's going to do that. The only people that have money to do that is Big Pharma. Okay? But they're not going to do it because they wouldn't make any money off of it. And so it's basically, we'll just kind of like suppress all that information, and we'll just say it's not true. And so that's what DMSO was. Now, if you go to the store and you see something like glucosamine chondroitinins for joint support, sometimes you see it with MSM. Well, actually, that is a metabolite directly from DMSO. MSM has this much potency, DMSO like this, okay? So there's oxidation reduction. If you take DMSO, you go this way, you get MSM. If you go this way, you get DSM. And anyway, they're both metabolites, and they both have some function. But the DMSO is very, very potent. It's an anti-inflammatory, and it can be used as a vehicle. Now, Big Pharma does use it, but you'd never know that. Sometimes they use it with some of their products, and they put it in to help as a vehicle. Because if you took something, if you took DMSO, say, orally, and at the same time took something else, you could get rapid absorption. Poof! It just shoots it really high, so you have to be careful. If you have anything on your skin and you put it on your skin over that, whatever is on your skin goes right in. It's pretty remarkable. But as far as safety, I've never seen problems with this. Now, back, I remember maybe 35 years ago, okay, well, the FDA had approved it for interstitial cystitis. What's that? It's inflammation of the lining of the bladder, it's usually in women, and it was very effective. And so here I was putting a catheter in and infusing this massive amounts of DMSO, not just a little bit, you know, like you'd put on your heel. This is a massive amount. The FDA is saying, well, that's safe because it's in the bladder. It's throughout every cell in their body within minutes. It was a massive amount. And I'd leave it in there for like 30 minutes and have them, you know, evacuate that. But they wouldn't approve it for anything else. At the time, they didn't have anything else for interstitial cystitis, by the way. Big Pharma came later with drugs that they would use. But it's funny how DMSO just kind of fell to the wayside. Did it work? Yes, it did. Okay. But it has a lot of applications. I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Well answered on that one, huh? Okay, Matthias.
Yeah, my question is regarding omega-6 fats. I need your opinion on omega-6 fat, and good or bad or indifferent. I heard that it's harder to digest, and if so, what foods should we avoid that contain omega-6?
Okay, great question. Omega-6, okay, we have a number of different types of fatty acids in our body. Our bodies are made of a lot of fats. So omega-6s, those are basically your vegetable oils for the most part. They're called also seed oils. But we actually do need them in our body. We need a balance of omega-6s and omega-3s. Omega-3s, think of fish oil, think of flaxseed oil, think of walnuts, chia seeds. Different things might have some omega-3 in them, but we use them for different things. The omega-6s do not burn well. You're absolutely right. They don't. They're not really good fuels. Okay, but we're supposed to have a 1-to-1 to 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to 3s in the body. The American diet, now these are stats from 20 years ago. The American diet ratio is not 1-to-1, 2-to-1, it's 13-to-1 to 45-to-1. Okay?
Because of all the seed oils?
Yeah. That was 20 years ago. It did not get better. Okay? Now, the point is, in that, the omega-6s get fed into this funnel at the top of this thing called arachidonic acid pathway, okay? And I'll explain what that is. Okay, so you have step, 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 step. Oh, and all of these are mediated through enzymes. There's one enzyme here, it's called cyclooxygenase. Okay, now you're going to get this connection in a second. But at the bottom of this are these little prostaglandins. They're like mini hormones that mediate information throughout your body. And these prostaglandins, this one is thromboxane. Sounds like thrombosis? Well, it makes your platelets sticky. This one, PGE1, PGE2, there's a number of them. This one is cellular proliferation. You don't want a lot of cellular proliferation. You want some, but not a lot. So now getting back to this enzyme, cyclooxygenase, what inhibits that? Aspirin, ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil, naproxen, Aleve, diclofenac, Voltaren, meloxicam, Mobic. Anyway, there's a number of other ones, but those are COX inhibitors. Okay, so they block this. So you take aspirin, you block that, and you get less thromboxane. So your platelets are less sticky. It doesn't thin your blood out. It just makes your platelets a little less sticky. Okay, well, what about this one, PG1? Oh, I took 2 aspirin and my headache went away. Or I took ibuprofen. Same thing, it blocks that. And all of a sudden, oh, because you have less PGE1 here, well, all of a sudden your pain is gone. Okay, well, what about this one? Oh, that's inflammation. You take a high enough dose, you're going to decrease certain inflammatory pathways. Not all inflammation, just a certain one. It's a very complex highway. So over here on the omega-3 side, you have prostaglandins that do just the opposite. This one makes your platelets less sticky. This one decreases pain. This one decreases inflammation. In fact, a lot of people that are on these anti-inflammatories here, it's just like a perpetuating system where they never downregulate the inflammation. Okay, but now they have these really, they're kind of expensive. They're modulators of the inflammation to downregulate that. And what it is nothing more than high-dose purified fish oil, these molecules. And the omega-3s will balance that out. So the omega-3s are involved with your brain, okay? Your brain is about 60% fat, and you need the omega-3s. You need it in, they put it in infant formula. Well, it's in mother's milk. It's very, very important. So if we have this imbalance, the whole American diet is nothing more than inflammatory foods, because you asked the question about these seed oils, okay, and how important it is to moderate that. As I said, we need some, but we get way too many of them. So we have canola oil, okay, not so good, highly processed. Canola oil comes from Canadian oil low acid. That's what the name canola means. And low acid, it's a russic acid that's in the rapeseed plant that is very toxic to the human body. So they found a way of decreasing the 40% of russic acid down to maybe 4%. And it's not so, it's tolerable. Some people, they can't tolerate even that. But it's not a great oil. And then you get into the other one, soybean. And then you get into corn, and then
Safflower, sunflower. So the bottom line would be the best oils would be the natural olive oil, avocado.
Yes, okay.
tallow.
And not to say that, you can't have, you can't eat sunflower seeds. Didn't say that. We were talking about balance, okay? But because the government and big ag, big food, they promoted this heavily, and they went into a big thing about the healthy soybeans. And this is back, I don't know if some of you maybe remember back in the 70s. It's the health food. Well, they infiltrated the nutrition industry and kind of like seeded people with this idea that it was really healthy. It wasn't really healthy. And so it got into everything, and they promoted, we have, I don't know how much we produce in the world, but we have so much of these grains. We have soybean, and we have corn, and of course there's the wheat too, but it's not an oil, but we are producing these things, so we've got to use them. And so they put them into the food, and that's one of the influencers for the food pyramid we had. Now recently they just made those changes, and they said we're going to kind of shift this around to have it science-based. Well, it wasn't science-based? Not really. It really wasn't.
It was money-based. Money-based.
Yeah.
Another question, Raji?
Actually 3, but they're quick. Your thoughts about methylene blue, your thoughts about products and devices that claim to stimulate stem cell production, and your opinion on vitamin infusion therapy.
So her first
Wow.
question was on methylene blue. Methylene blue's been around 1940s. It's a
Okay.
fabric dye that they found out.
Oh,
had some
no,
great-
it goes back 100 years.
Wow.
It goes back over, 100.
It's a blue dye.
It was in the 1800s, actually, but it's a blue dye. I don't know. As far as I know, I mean, they could have even used it for the original Levi's. I don't know, but it works, okay. A very interesting molecule, but it works at the level of the mitochondria, okay? And there's a lot of great doctors and people that have experience with it, and I've listened to all of them, and there may be something substantial there, and then there may be not. Okay, so I've listened to both sides, and I know the science. I think that the application is not just for the general person just to take it when, I'm just going to take methylene blue and it'll help me. I think that it seems to be more applicable to people that actually have disease states, that it actually helps. And it's on the level of the mitochondria in that electron transport cannon that I mentioned.
Does it have to do with serotonin too? Or it's like a chemical reaction to feel good and
I don't know about that.
serotonin uptake?
I can't comment on that, but it everything has to do with the mitochondrial function, and it can
use
actually be
wisdom.
used. It's kind of helping that electron transport pathway. It actually helps it. Okay, but I will say there's some big question marks, whether that's good in someone that's already healthy as opposed to someone that is sick, because certain things work differently.
Yeah.
Those things. To finish your question on the omega-6, I wanted one last point on that. Is it a good fuel? No, it's not a good fuel. And where are all the fuels burned? They're burned in the mitochondria. Okay? Now, that's where the glucose goes in. Those are the carbohydrates. And then you have the hydrocarbons, the fats. Well, they come in the carnitine fatty acid shuttle, and it shuttles them into the mitochondria. And they're burned in a different pathway system. They don't burn well. That's the point. The linoleic acid molecules, that's the omega-6s for the most part, they don't burn well inside the mitochondria. And they produce these molecules called oxalams, oxidative linoleic acid metabolites. So we call them oxalams. And they damage the inside of this delicate factory. Okay, so you're putting really bad fuel into your vehicle out there. Okay, you don't want to do that. You want to put good fuel into your vehicle. If you put bad fuel in, you'll know that, oh my gosh, this whole thing is gumming up. I've got carbonized, valves. Everything is not working good. That's what those do. They gum up the system, and they actually increase your risk of something called insulin resistance. Okay, when you have glucose coming in the front door, and the cell is just trying to like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, way too much glucose all the time. We're going to try and shut that door and keep that insulin guy from opening the door. And if we can do that, then we'll have less glucose coming in that's damaging us. And what's the cell trying to do with the extra glucose that insulin is throwing in? We'll shove it out the side door. Insulin will convert it into triglycerides and put it into the fat cells or into the liver cells. Not good. So that's happening over on that end. On the back end with the omega-6s, they're coming in, they're not burning well, and they end up damaging it. So now the factory can't produce any energy. So that means whatever insulin resistance you had from the carbs coming in, now you're actually making even harder. Okay, so that means your insulin resistance is going to go up even more. Okay, you can't burn it. So when I first heard that, I said, "Whoa, fats causing insulin resistance?" So I had to look at the science and the research, and I found out, whoa, it's true, and it explains it perfectly why that would be the case. Now, fats that burn well in the mitochondria, some do better. MCT oil,
Multitriglyceride.
capric, caprylic, caproic acid. It's coconut oil, and those are medium chain triglycerides, and you can take a little dose of that in. You put they have keto creamers like that, but you can measure actually ketone levels within like 2 hours of consuming that. Well, that's crazy. To get ketones, you have to burn a fat molecule, and that's what's at the end of that. And so that means that is being utilized rapidly and producing those ketones. So I think that's interesting. So not that you have to do nothing but MCT oil. I'm just saying there's a balance.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, with all of those things.
What was the other one? I didn't understand that.
I didn't get to the other one yet. Methylene blue, stem cell.
Yeah, what was after stem cell. Oh, products that promote stem cell.
You want stem cells? I'll tell you what you do.
Fasting.
You do a 4-day water fast. Not short of 4 days, just 4 days. At the end of 4 days, you will actually get a stem cell release. Whoa, it's free. Okay. Now, if you go an extra 2 days, six days complete, you actually get another there's another oomph. I don't know why it works out that way, but I know if you go short of 4 days, you don't get that.
True, yeah.
So,
and what was the other one, Raji? Vitamin infusion, like if somebody like a vitamin C therapy, like high doses of.
Okay, so sure.
Vitamin C is promising.
Okay,
right?
so this goes back many decades. It goes back to Linus Pauling. When you're doing, we'll talk about vitamin C. So vitamin C, people talk about it as being an antioxidant. When you're doing intravenous vitamin C, it is not an antioxidant at all. It is a pro-oxidant. Okay, it's just the opposite. Well, no, it's not necessarily bad. Okay, it has incredible effects for treating a lot of different diseases, and in fact, just because of what has transpired in the last few years, traditional medicine has had a little bit of difficulty keeping the lid on some of this other stuff, and there's a lot of research that's being released. Well, they tried to release it before, but it was always kind of, So now people are hearing more and more about this. This is actually, there's actually real science behind it, and the high dose vitamin C is a very useful adjunct for treating cancer. Okay, and Yeah, the cancer cells do not do well with this. Okay, so there's just a lot of very high-powered studies out there. There's too much literature to quote. It's there, but it's slowly coming out. There's nothing illegal about doing IVC. It's just the question, oh, does it do anything? Oh, it doesn't do anything. No, it does. And this is even coming, out of the Institutes of Health and other large medical centers.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's vitamin C. There's a number of other things. There's IV glutathione, or there's others.
Yeah, with cancer, it's so hard because there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What's causing it? Walter Longo here at USC's got a lot of research on fasting with chemotherapy, but he uses very low dosages of chemo to get the cancer cells, which are obviously the weaker cells already, and then the fasting strengthens the good cells. That's his approach. But what happened, if you go against the standard care of medicine, you could lose your license. I'll talk to dentists who don't think root canals are a good idea, but they can't tell you that. Or doctors who know they can't, give the shot. Let's just say that so we don't get banned from YouTube. But they can't tell you that because it's such it's a money-driven industry too. That it's really not after health. You have to be concerned about your health. You have to be the doctor and take it to the Lord and use wisdom.
Yeah, and that's a very strong point as far as like IVC. Well, it's not a panacea for all cancer. Every cancer is very unique and different, but they're finding different combinations. It's not just a one treatment approach. It's multifaceted and multi-pronged, and that's one of the problems, with our system in interpreting something. Well, they're going to test this one treatment just by itself, and they'll say, well, that didn't work. But some of these centers have actually put together like a 5-prong approach for treating this cancer, and their results were like through the roof. But they said, yeah, that's really good, but which one was it that cured them? And well, it was all of them. Well, no, we can't go along with that. In fact, I was reading a study just last week, and they said they wouldn't publish it because of that. They wouldn't publish it.
And also why it gets challenging on the plant-based animal product, that's a whole nother debate. Animal product, it produces high levels of IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which will grow cancer. So will mTOR, mammalian targeted rapamycin. Those increase with animal-based, but then plant-based only, and you've got insulin resistance, too many carbs, and one of the main sources of fuel for cancer, I believe, is glucose. And so that's why ketogenic diets are showing pretty helpful for cancer, because it's glutathione and glucose are main 2 fuel sources. You actually starve with a ketogenic type diet, and so maybe that could work.
With regards to that, it's known as the Warburg effect, in which cancer cells can't they don't use oxygen, they don't use the mitochondria the same way, and so
fermentation.
And so the cancer cells, they use glycolysis. It's out in the cell itself. Well, it's a very, very inefficient way of producing energy, but they don't require oxygen. The oxygen goes to the mitochondria. They don't want to rely on that because they want to do what they want. They want to go where they want, and so there's no oxygen being used. So it's just cancer. When they do a PET scan to see if someone has cancer that's spread, what is that? It's a fluorinated glucose molecule. It's a dextrose. And they'll see where all these things light up. Why would those light up with cancer? Because the cancer consumes if our cells are consuming this much of glucose, cancer cells are like just sucking it in because that's their food. Well, then you just cut out the carbs and that'll be it. Now they have a backdoor approach. they actually can burn some fats, okay, just to keep alive, and they will. And so you can, you could starve them for a while, and as soon as you
Eat again.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're back.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times, I've met with lots of people here over the years. You pray, they have chemo or whatever, and hey, it's gone, but then it comes back pretty strong, pretty intense.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't fully dealt with. It was not that you can sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, with our whole cancer treatment system is, we'll use chemo, we'll poison, we'll irradiate, okay, and then we'll slash. We may cut it out, okay, and they all have everything has their place, but the chemo. Every chemo is different. Some chemo is actually could be beneficial in low dose in certain applications. Other ones, the success rate that they have is horrible. It's very, very low, and they're not telling the patient, but they say, well, we don't have anything else to offer. So it destroys the patient's immune system. Okay, but there are so many different ways within the field of oncology, and most of my oncology friends, their hands are kind of tied, and some of them have developed, ways of combining conventional chemo with other alternatives and using low dose. And in fact, what you were talking about with the fasting, because I put it in my book, I put my patients on 4 days prior to chemo treatments, and it strengthens, it gets all of your healthy cells robust, okay? And at the same time, during a fast, those cancer cells are just like, we're just barely surviving, we're barely surviving.
And then the chemo comes in.
Okay, and then the chemo comes in, and your healthy cells they already have this antioxidant built up support, and the chemo doesn't affect them. And the cancer cells are, no, and they're already in a weakened state. So we get an increased kill rate, and we mitigate all the side effects from the chemo. Now, I've had patients do that, and they're going, wow, I didn't have any kind of problem at all. And after their, 3 chemo treatments, they decided, maybe it was just, I don't really need this. So they didn't do it, and they were like so sick. And I've seen that time and again. But it's true. Walter
Longo, yeah.
Walter
And
Longo, yeah.
there's got to be a desire, because I probably sent that YouTube video to a dozen people starting chemo, and nobody wants, that's too hard. I'm like, guys, you're going through, that's too hard, 4 days to water fast?
Yeah.
When your health's on there? I'd say your chemo is about right, and then they have you sitting there drinking a milkshake while you're taking it.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
hospital food, don't get me started.
No, but I have talked with oncologists about their patient. I said, look, have you heard about this? Yeah, I've heard about that, but I don't know anything about fasting or how to do it. And I go, I'll take care of that. You take care of your side. And I said, I just want you to know what I'm doing with the patient. Oh, okay. But it kind of scares them because, oh my gosh, if you put anyone on a fast and they've got cancer, they're going to lose weight and all this. And I go, no, they're not going to lose any weight. Not at all. Okay. And so if you do it appropriately, yeah, there are centers that, and I read what Walter Longo had done with some of these places, but most of them, they want nothing to do with it. Besides, it's outside the box. It may affect their bottom line, and that's why they don't. So
We can't have healthy patients. Was there one back here? What? Oh, next. Okay.
Your thoughts on peptide therapy?
Okay.
What type? BP 157, 5-amino-1-MQ, tesamorelin.
Obviously, we can go way down the list.
All
Well,
right.
let me set it
Okay.
up for you, and then I'll
Yeah.
give you. Peptides are just strands of amino acids, small strands of amino acids. Some peptides will go for recovery, some will go for muscle building, some will go for heart health. So they've isolated this 5-amino-1-MQ, for example, blocks a fat molecule from, basically it helps with fat loss. GLP-1, the glucagon-like peptide Ozempic, that's actually a peptide. Tesamorelin, That's an injection where those are for muscle. It's almost like mimicking testosterone. And so that's what they are. They're small strands of amino acids that have specific functions. But beyond the long-term effects, I don't know if we know enough, but it's over to you.
Yeah, they're kind of like many little hormones in some sense. And
Yeah.
you mentioned, the GLP-1 agents like Ozempic and Mounjaro, and there's a number of those. But they found out, wow, we can manufacture these little peptides, and we can get all these specific effects. And there are some great uses. I mean, some of the anabolic type injections for, say, after a surgery or something like that, and healing someone's shoulder. Okay, yeah, there's application for that. My concern is that we don't have a track record with these. It's not long term. And so we find out later what these downstream effects are. And patients thinking, well, they didn't tell me this. Well, they didn't know, and they really didn't want to find anything early on because the whole thing was about, profitability. So we don't know what the downstream effects are.
Yeah, I would add, it's one of those things where some things are beneficial, like even TRT, testosterone replacement therapy but if you can get the person off of alcohol, losing weight, sleeping better, and eating better, they'll raise their testosterone levels on their own. And the difference with testosterone is you put a synthetic hormone inside your body that shuts down your own production of testosterone. The peptide more complements what's already going on, and it'll cause your hormone to respond. But I agree, you don't know the long term.
Yeah, and I have had patients, and I've told them, yes, go ahead, you can use this. This is a short-term thing. With the GLP-1 agents, because that's just like crazy. That's the biggest example. So we have, I don't know, Ozempic this, Ozempic that, Ozempic that. I mean, Ozempic backside, Ozempic, chin, or Ozempic, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's falling in their weight, and that's the only thing they're concerned about. So I tell people, look, I will get you off of those. I will tell you how to eat properly, because the idea that it's ludicrous to think, well, that's the only way you can lose weight.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and it's just simple. It just makes you lose weight. No, it just.
And then you're stuck with
your
it.
appetite is down, and you're not good. Well, okay. I mean, I'm simplifying things, but it slows your gastric emptying down. It is going to affect your appetite. If the stomach is emptying slower, think about it. The food is coming into the intestines slower. The energy is going into your bloodstream slower, not spiking. That's how it controls diabetes, okay, is that you're not taking in as many calories, but again, everything is slower. The gastric emptying is slower. But what if the person had permanent gastric paralysis? It actually does happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's
one of the side effects.
gastroparesis. I've probably had 4 patients hospitalized. I wasn't controlling them at the time, but some of them I was, but they just decided to go against my advice, and they were going to double the dose because they want to lose weight faster. Okay, well, no, it didn't work that way. In fact, after 5 days of puking, they ended up, admitted for 2 weeks intravenous therapy in the hospital trying to recover. Well, that's pretty sad, but they almost died. And I think I had about 4 patients. One had, their whole digestive tract shut down. So anyway,
you don't know how the peptide's going to respond. And just so everyone knows, maybe you don't know, Ozempic it's called a GLP-1. There's GLP-2 as well. It has a different function. GLP-1 is a glucagon-like peptide. So it mimics the effects of glucagon, which it slows, you're not as hungry. When that's high, you're not as hungry. So it just doesn't make you hungry. But then you could get into, are you getting enough nutrients?
Protein.
Your muscle starts to be,
Right.
you lose muscle. And then you got to stay on this for from here on out.
Right now, so the people get on this, and they had a pitifully poor diet when they started.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really bad. Okay, and it's maybe borderline on the amount of protein that they really need because they don't pay any attention. They're just eating. So they start the Ozempic or whatever, whichever one you're on, and now they're just eating less of the pitifully poor diet. And 40% of their weight loss was due to protein loss. So back in the 80s, I was putting people on protein-sparing modified fast. So the women would get a minimum amount of protein, and the men had a certain amount, because I said, I do not want you to lose any muscle. I want you just to burn fat. So I would make sure they had that amount. They had other nutrients and stuff they were taking in, but again, with these people out there, no one's giving them advice, and the doctors don't know anything about nutrition for the most part. And I will ask countless patients about that, and they'll say, same answer, well, no one ever gave me any advice. Some of them are getting it through proper settings, and at least they're being told what they should eat. I would say if you're going to do that, well, you better be in with a nutritionist, dietitian to give you proper, and the goal is to get you off of this in the future. I tell them that, okay, I'm going to teach you how to slow your stomach down naturally. And number one, you're going to get off your sugar addiction.
That's what's
Okay,
causing it,
and
yeah.
take advantage of this. You're going to get off of that. I'm going to make sure you're taking in adequate protein. I'm going to have you eating nutrient-dense foods. It's mostly vegetables, okay? Vegetables and fruits. Well, fruits have sugar. Now, everything in balance. You can get into extremes. So I say you're going to eat nutrient-dense foods. The stomach, with all those above-ground vegetables, as opposed to below-ground, potatoes, sweet potatoes, onions, carrots, beets, okay, those are all starchy type. They're not bad. It's just that we're trying to get the nutrient-dense foods up here that have a lot of fiber. And the fiber serves a number of things, but it will fill your stomach up, and the stomach does slow down its emptying. And the fiber is not just roughage. The fiber, once it gets down below, is going to feed your microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing it does. But it's slowing things down. The second thing is the protein that we were focusing in on. And if you have adequate protein, the stomach, it produces hydrochloric acid. Okay, what a concept. Why is the stomach producing hydrochloric acid? Because it's a pre-digestive pouch. It's there for a reason. So the stomach basically says, hold up, no one leaves. You guys came in with this protein load. I am going to pre-digest it, and we're going to slow things down. So the stomach is emptying at a slower rate, okay? And it produces, there's some other things, pepsin, but for example. But as those two things help you with slowing down the evacuation of your stomach there, you're going to be able to control your weight better. Your glucose is not going to be spiking. It's going to go in like this.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's funny, all the synthetic, or I call it engineered foods, man-made foods, they're the ones causing all the damage. I mean, Dr. Joel Furman, Esselstyn, Caldwell, they've done incredible. Like, you can almost eat as much as you want, certain foods, like big salads. And I've tried it. It's like 700 calories. I'm so full, I can't even finish the thing. You eat as much of that if you want, and you'll really lose weight because your body can't, it's already full. It's when we have the things that have 1,200 calories and we're still hungry.
those are nutrient dense but low caloric.
Low caloric, yeah. Nutrient dense, low caloric. Luis, is there another one?
Yeah, we have another question over here.
Thank you for coming, and I maybe want to meet with you afterward to see if you're available on a one-on-one. I have a granddaughter. Her name is Gracie. She's 2. She's been diagnosed by bone biopsy with Pearson's syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Life expectancy of 4. I'm not receiving that. She's had multiple blood transfusions about every 8 weeks because her body destroys the whatever iron. She had a blood transfusion at 5 days old. They've backed off with the blood transfusions, but she's had a myriad of problems. In 2020, a panic injection was taken by Mama. And I want to know, is this really hereditary, or is this mitochondria thing due to the panic response? And what can we do to help her? She has low appetite. She takes an appetite enhancer.
Yeah. How old is she?
2.
2, yeah. We're going to have to answer that question afterwards, okay?
There's
But
so many variables.
every disease, even these genetic diseases, they always end up going back to the mitochondria, because if a cell, whatever the cell is, if it doesn't have enough energy to fulfill its daily task, okay, it can't fulfill those if it doesn't have enough energy. But anyway, there's so many variations on that. I'm not going to answer the question right now, but it does always fall back to that.
Yeah. Don, we should pray for her too. Keep praying in the prayer room. Yeah. No, I know. I agree. That's what we pray. We're going to pray afterwards too.
There are always options, answers, and I tell my patients, I go, even if we don't know right now, I said, well, gosh, I'm going to pray, and we're going to get an answer. It might come tomorrow, it might come next month or whatever, but we will pray and we'll find out. Okay, ultimately, she's in His hands.
Waiting on the Lord, yeah. I think.
Hi. Okay. I'm going on a trip in 2 weeks to Israel, and there's a lot of walking, and I have bad knees. I've had knee repair in the left, and I'm going in for a cortisone shot to reduce the swelling and to increase movement, hopefully so that I can navigate the trip. I've heard someone mentioned the peptide therapy for possibly knee repair. Doctors mentioned surgery, like a total knee replacement. So I'm wondering, I'm kind of wondering where I should go, what I should do, even with the cortisone shot.
Do you have bone on bone?
Yes, on the left knee. So I'm getting the cortisone shot right after I leave here. But they suggested, and I've had it before, and it did reduce the swelling. I've had significant swelling, which reduces my movement.
Yeah.
Well, you asked bone on bone because the peptide BP 157 or whatever it is can't really heal bone on bone. That's the main thing.
It's the question is whether there's any cartilage left, but I can't really give medical advice, but I will answer your question a little bit indirectly later.
Go ahead.
Can you take metformin if you don't have type 2 diabetes as a vitamin?
Yeah, a lot of the big health craze right now is to take metformin as a longevity supplement but these guys want to live forever.
I think there are better ways than the metformin. It does. Guess where it works?
Mitochondria.
Yeah. Same thing with berberine.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's a natural.
Okay, there's a lot of uses for metformin, even berberine, and some some oncology centers actually combine that as part of their treatment because it has useful effects. As I was saying, the cancer has mitochondrial problems, but the metformin and agents like berberine, they do have actions, but again, does it help someone that is healthy and metabolically sound? Usually I'm using metformin for metabolic dysfunction, okay? And how do I cure it? Diet. And what else? Diet.
Yeah.
And what else? Yeah.
And it might not be in your case, but so many people are looking for that magic, so I don't have to change anything. Can I take this? Can I take this? Are you talking about like Brian, like those social media guys that all are taking it as a health benefit? Okay. She asked. Questions up here?
We had one
Oh
back
boy, a
here
lot
as
of
well.
questions.
I'm trying to go by order.
If you guys want, you could stand up and just go back there, and then that way.
Yeah, you touched on the question I had just right now, the supplement berberine, your thoughts on that for glucose control and sugar cravings. And then my second question was, what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet?
Berberine, like just elaborate a little bit on berberine.
Berberine. And then did he say carnivore?
Carnivore diet, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have thoughts on that.
Okay, well, the berberine it has actions very similar to metformin. They both come from plants. They both have actions on the mitochondria, and it can be used to help with some insulin resistance in people that are having it. Again, getting back to the foundation of everything, you start off with nutrition. You start off with healthy eating. In our medical system, food and nutrition is given, it's lip service. And if the doctor is going to give any nutrition advice, he's going to say, I want you to see a dietitian. And that's about it, which is sad. And I use berberine? Yes, I do. And some people will say, well, I'm not going to use metformin because that's a drug. I go, well, everything's kind of a drug, but that they both come from plants. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to just put someone on it for no good reason, but I will reverse their insulin resistance. I've had people from, if you know anything about A1C, what that level is, normal is 4.8 to 5.6. I've had people that were circling the planet, their level was so high, 13 something, and coming all the way down to 5.8 and actually going into non-pre-diabetic. Pre-diabetes is 5.7 to 6.4. Well, they made it all the way down from out there down to here, mostly through just teaching them how to eat right. And that's the foundation. And if I need to use a little berberine, I use it. If I use metformin, that's fine. Other things, natural agents that help with sugar control, gosh, even cinnamon, 1,000 milligram capsule of cinnamon, starting off at that dose, that's fine. That also helps with stabilizing sugar levels. Chromium picolinate. It's not for treating diabetes, it's just an adjunct. It doesn't replace proper eating. And just teaching people how to eat natural whole foods. It seems ludicrous that someone like myself is telling people just eat natural food and that's it.
So now it can springboard into the next part of that is the carnivore.
Oh.
So I'll give my thoughts and then Dr. Paul.
Go ahead.
Anytime, biblically speaking, we're allowed plants, and 1,500 years later, after the flood, God said, now I give you the beasts of the field just like I gave you the plants. And so, of course, you hear the testimonies online. I've talked to people who have amazing results from carnivore. The reason is, number one is they're losing weight, and they're feeling better because they're in a state of ketosis. And ketosis can, your brain loves ketone bodies. And your carbohydrates, especially the wrong sources, are causing a lot of our problems. So you're getting rid of all the bad food. I'd like to see somebody who's really eating healthy on plant-based and doing great, have them switch to carnivore. I'd like to see how much better they feel. But it's normally people coming off of standard American diet, And so you get your body into ketosis. You are eating God-given food, just meat. And so your body's going to be able to utilize it a lot better than the carbs. The positives, Jordan Peterson, of course, and his daughter, lots of people have experienced really good results. For me, it's hard to picture long-term because fiber is so important and so many phytochemicals in plants, that long-term, I don't know,
Yeah. So Jordan Peterson, you mentioned, his daughter was on this carnivore diet, and I think she had some autoimmune disease. And people say, "Oh, that's it. That's it. That's the cure." Yes and no. There's benefits to it, and I don't have any issue with carnivore short term. Long term, yeah, because of the things we mentioned.
So many things.
Again,
off the top of my head.
you're driving your vehicle. You're going down a lot of different streets and highways, and you don't have to stay in one lane, okay? You can move into other lanes, and you can drive different ways with your vehicle. We're all in these vehicles. And you don't have to do just that. You can do a ketogenic diet. I've had patients on it for a long time, but I take them off of it, and I introduce other things. Just the fasting. Do not be rigid on your lifestyle and diet. Rigidity means you're going to break, okay? If you're flexible, okay, you're going to do well. And so you change things up. You don't have to drive the same way all the time. What's his name? Dr. Paul,
Saladino?
Yeah, okay.
He gave up on carnivore.
Dr. Carnivore. He was known as Dr. Carnivore. Well, he's not Dr. Carnivore anymore. He's not anti-carnivore. He's just...
Yeah, because what I think seasonal would be good. God gave like the Eskimos times when it's in the winter. So obviously I think a person can benefit from doing it, but to live there, you're gonna miss out on a lot of key nutrients. And Dr. Paul Saladino, I've watched others where they actually begin to start introducing carbs again because they weren't feeling good. It started to really deplete certain minerals and key nutrients, and they just felt better taking some carbs in again.
Yeah, and you've mentioned it. I've heard you mention, I wasn't there at the time, but I've heard you mention, well, this is, what would Jesus eat, okay?
Oh, what would Jesus eat, yeah.
And that's exactly what I've done with my practice. I say, well, did Jesus eat meat? Of course he did. Okay, oh my gosh, well, meat's bad for you. And I go, well, I don't know, it seems like the whole thing about ancient Israel was about these big feasts that they had. Yeah. Oh, well, they were just burning everything and offering. I go, no, they were actually consuming a lot of this. And the Levite priests and all of these people in the culture were eating meat. Okay, it's not that they were eating excessive amounts. They weren't on a carnivore diet. And you kind of look at it, they had a really good balance. He did eat fish, obviously. And he did have lamb. And he did have some dairy. And okay, so I always have to use that as my yardstick. Okay, yeah, what did Jesus eat? What would he eat? What would he eat today?
And the problem with meat isn't necessarily the meat, it's what's in it nowadays. You get into they're eating the GMO corn, they're getting injected the growth hormones and the different shots, and then they eat the meat, all the preservatives in the meat.
Yeah.
Luncheon meat. And so it's really just like with the word, I won't say the word, but you guys know what it is. It's not the dead bacteria itself that's trying to trigger the immune response. It's the adjuvant agents they're adding to it to get it into the cell. Those are the problems that it's been having, with Art Kennedy's brought up and different people.
Yeah. And so a lot of meat studies have not taken into account that they kind of lumped all meat together. It did not isolate out, okay, processed meat with preservatives,
Big difference.
All the deli meats, okay, those are bad. I won't consume any of them. Well, you can't get that stuff without preservatives. Of course you can. Of course you can. We've been doing it for years. And if we're going to eat meat, we try to go with grass-fed, kind of organic. But well, that's expensive. Well, don't eat a lot of meat, okay? But see, the whole thing with carnivore, the same thing with like paleo, well, it's going back to the way our ancestors lived. They ate this way, and this is the healthiest way. And of course, the paleo is You know, it's all based on, you know, evolutionary thinking, and I mean, if you read their literature, well, I disagree with it. It's not that.
I think meat was a treat. I mean, you'd have to go shoot the animal, process the animal, make a fire, cook the animal. Hopefully you can preserve it. You know how to do it with the salt and jerky. I mean, it's not like you're just carrying, like we have it everywhere. It was, they get the blueberries off the tree, the carrots. I mean, to say that's the way they ate is.
Yeah, they had ways of preserving, so be it salting or smoking or other things. But again, it was a treat, and it wasn't something that they were just consuming around the clock. But we kind of go to extremes. So,
you know, I've always thought it's ironic. The food that God gave the children of Israel was plant-based. It's Bedelian. It tastes like honey and wafer. That was God was going to sustain them for 40 years. Interesting side note, you know. I don't know, it's just for fun. So next question.
Yeah, we have a question over here.
You guys, I guess you don't have to stand up. You're going to stand too long. You can sit down if you need to and raise your hand. Sorry, Yvette. But, I mean, you can stay standing if you want. I just don't want you standing forever. So go ahead. Who's ever next? Luis has got the mic.
Yes, you had mentioned gastroenterology earlier. I was curious if there's any dietary or what have you ways to try and prevent it from coming out of remission.
So gastro disease, it's already in.
Crohn's disease.
Oh, Crohn's, okay.
In particular.
So it's already in remission now. How do you keep it there? Okay.
Crohn's disease is a chronic inflammatory condition of the bowel. It involves the small intestine, can involve the large intestine as well. And it's somewhat autoimmune. It's different than ulcerative colitis. It's another inflammatory bowel disease. But there are ways of controlling it. I can give you a reference later of something to look up as far as natural things that can help with controlling that. It's in remission right now? Yeah. Okay. Again,
I mean, just a long shot here, but
there's multiple factors.
Just a long shot here. Does diet play a role? I mean,
diet is the core. Diet is the core. And again, the microbiome, it has to do, yes, it has to do a lot with the microbiome. And again, trying to find that balance. And microbiome, people think, well, what is it? Oh, it's the bacteria in your gut. But it's not as easy as people think to just reset that. The American diet promotes the wrong bacteria. You've got the good guys and the bad guys, and then the ugly. Good, bad, and ugly. And the good guys produce nutrients, okay, short-chain fatty acids, primarily butyrate. And butyrate is an incredible molecule. In fact, the same benefits from butyrate, and you can actually get this as a supplement.
Yeah,
the same thing with fasting.
Yeah.
BHB, beta-hydroxybutyrate from the fasting, that's a ketone. But this butyrate short-chain fatty acid, it nourishes your bowel cells, especially the colon cells. And this is your good bacteria. Then you've got the bad bacteria, which pretty much is the American diet, and it squashes out these guys. And these guys don't survive in a high sugar, high carb environment. And so the bad bacteria, which is basically the American diet, they have a host of other short-chain fatty acids and things like lipopolysaccharide. It causes inflammation through your body. The American diet is just pro-inflammatory. If you eat any fast food, you're guaranteed to get a lot of.
I was going to say, guess where serotonin is created?
Oh, it's around your gut.
85% of serotonin is in your gut.
Yeah, and so
anxiety,
it affects your brain. The microbiome produces a lot of these things, but it affects the function of your gut, your bowel. I know we're getting away from the Crohn's here, so I wanted to.
Yvette, get ready. I'm saying, Yvette, you ready for your question? Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
but But the microbiome is part and parcel. It's key to this, and providing the right fuel for that to keep them alive. The yeast proliferate when there's a high amount of sugar. Anyway, you get the wrong bacteria. You break down the epithelial gut barrier, and that can actually allow proteins in your food to creep across. You get this inflammatory reaction from your immune system. This is part of this is related, to the Crohn's issue, but it's a little bit more involved. But there are ways of healing that, and there's a number of things that you can do. But the key, is optimizing the nutrition, but trying to get people to reestablish their bacteria in a good balance. It's
Takes a while.
It's not instant.
Fermented foods and God-given foods, sauerkrauts, God-given plant-based foods, even meat would really,
Kefir, yogurt, kombucha, kimchi.
Kimchi, all that. Luis, who's next?
We have a next question right here.
Pastor said that we would be able to ask you, how do we find a good doctor? I was raised the way you guys talk about, and I'm not very medically minded. I know, and I'm thankful for doctors, but so many of them use the mighty dollar to dictate what they want to do. So I want a doctor who's not going to run to, I'll give you a pill for this, I'll give you a pill for that. I mean, I hardly ever go to the doctor anyways, thank goodness. But how do you find a good doctor around here? Because we just moved down here and we don't have one.
I can talk about this area, and then you can elaborate. Right now, I don't know either. I was going to put something on Facebook because I need a good. But to answer, Dr. Paul is not one-on-one. He doesn't take on new clients. He works out of Oklahoma, so I don't even work with him. He refers me to my own personal physician here locally, and the two I know of, I don't want to say names, but it's just they're like 1990s, same old. One example on Avenue N. That's all I'll say. He did my blood pressure a while back, and it was high. And he goes, I got to get you on this and this. I'm like, can you use a large cuff? He goes, they didn't use a large cuff? And I'm like, no. So he put the large, you're fine. It's just that, it's like, you're just going to prescribe a medication without looking. So I was actually going to put it on Facebook if anybody knows of any good local physicians who balance, both holistically and, not going to push to prescribe anything or get the jabs. We had to leave one doctor 15 years ago because he was like going to call child services or something on the, like, hey, I just have questions. So it is very hard. I don't know of anybody locally, but I don't know if there's a website, or maybe I would do some interviews, maybe go and talk to different ones.
Yeah,
For a consult? Okay, let me do the homework and I'll see if I can find somebody locally.
There's
or maybe some of you can let her know afterwards.
Yeah, the Institute of Functional Medicine, but I can't vouch for all the doctors. And again, it doesn't matter whether you do standard medicine or natural medicine, integrative medicine. Okay, a lot of it is about the money, and they'll want to order, a battery of tests. This is going to cost $1,000, $1,500 just to get these tests. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to look around here. We don't know too many. It is okay. So talk to Raji afterwards. One example in ENT, also on Avenue J. Gosh, it's been 8 years now. We took Kylie in. He said, "Oh my gosh, her tonsils." They wanted to remove her tonsils and adenoids and schedule an appointment down at Children's Hospital like that in 2 days. I said, "Hold on." And so I got her off of dairy, sugar, took her on a drive every day, made her take a nap, and 6 days later, she's breathing fine, no need for it. So you've got to do your homework. You've got to be your own physician. Take it to the Lord. Use their counsel, but they're also going off of what. That's a good response he had based on. That will fix it, but it's almost like tonsils, adenoids. We do need them. They're good for immunity, So, yeah.
First, pray.
Yeah, exactly. Pray. How'd I miss that one?
Ask the Lord for,
Exactly.
no. Mm. But again, ask the Lord for guidance. Okay, what do I do? Where do I go? Can you help me?
Because he will use medicine. You know, we hear that antibiotics are not that great, but Paul just recommended I get on antibiotics recently. I have my root canal was abscess, and he goes, yeah, you don't want to mess with that 2 weeks ago. So I got on antibiotics. They pulled, the whole tooth is gone now. They pulled out, I did not know what I was getting into. Oh my Lord, have mercy. And so I'm still on it now because it came back and I started to get sick. And so now I'm on amoxicillin for 2 more days. But then I know how to rebuild the good gut bacteria, which I will be doing. And so there's a time and place where you got to jump on that stuff, you know, and God has given us those things. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, and the thing with antibiotics too, you have to realize, like when I was a kid, it was like 3 times a year, right? Here's your antibiotic. You get to a point now, even with our kids, they prescribe it. I think 6 times out of 10, we haven't used them because we give them colloidal silver. And then within a day or 2, they're doing better. Okay, I didn't need to give them, but I still have the amoxicillin in my refrigerator in case I need it. So you're using wisdom. You're not just throwing, and it kills all your good gut bacteria. So now I've got to be strategic with my tooth missing here still.
Yeah. And we can reset the bacteria, but again, it's sometimes not so easy.
Yeah, exactly. Another one?
We got another question over here.
I have a few questions. I narrowed it down to 2. And specifically, I wanted to know if there's actually an increase in strokes, because I keep hearing more and more friends and family members having strokes. My mother died of a brain bleed. And, is there something that's causing an increase in strokes, and what actually does cause it? And then my second question real quick was regarding the geoengineering and the elements that we're dealing with that are falling from the sky, how that's impacting our health and how we can, mitigate that.
I'll help you with the second question. Basically, chemtrails? Yeah. So at first, 20 years ago, I thought it's conspiracy theory, but now we know they're seeding our clouds with different things. That I don't know what to do with that one yet either. It's I don't know if you know much about that, but it's not conspiracy theory. They're actually feeding, they're seeding the clouds, they're seeding the environment. But the first question was, and I like, that's a good one. Why are strokes, do you know why strokes are?
Do you want to?
No.
No? Okay.
Not on strokes.
All right.
Well, strokes is just the.
Okay. Well, it's usually related to, strokes can be caused by so many different factors. Do you have high blood pressure? Is that out of control? Arteriosclerotic disease, plaques and things like that. But hypercoagulable states that come up. And there have been certain things, I'm not going to mention, in the last few years that have led to
2020
hypercoagulable states. We have international studies, up the yin yang. It's just too many studies showing all these strokes happening in young people. I think I read yesterday something like there were I forget how many international young athletes died suddenly. Okay,
it was amazing.
It's in the last couple years. Okay, and there were over 1,000 elite athletes having either death or significant morbidity. Okay, these are all young, healthy people. My son had, out of a class of like 24, something like that. I don't know. He had, and these are all in their mid-20s. Okay, and 4 of them end up having heart problems. Okay, and I won't say what preceded it by a few weeks. Okay, so you have those kind of things happening, and there are protocols and things that people can take to reduce certain proteins that are still floating around after a couple years.
Does it rhyme with ouchie? Anything on the chemtrails?
No, but there are some things that I do suggest to my patients if they've had certain types of infections or they've received certain types of therapies. I say you should consider going on nattokinase or lumbarokinase, and those are fibrinolytics, and they break down amyloid fibrin protein, which is one of the problems that we have seen over the last several years, and without going into that too much. And then there is another protein that is associated with a certain disease, and that one is also eliminated. These things are hard to eliminate and be broke down, but these fibrinolytics, nattokinase is from natto, it's a fermented a Japanese soy product. And it's a natural enzyme. And I've used it for 25 years or so. It's very useful. It's very healthy for the vascular tree. So that's one thing I would be doing. The other is lumbarokinase. That comes from Lumbricoides, which is the earthworm family. Another natural enzyme, but it breaks down fibrin, it breaks down other protein, but it's not damaging, it's not a health risk. I've never seen anything. But anyway, the literature on these as far as vascular health, yeah, it's great, but again, you're not going to get any pharmaceutical company pushing that.
And so to clarify, what you're recommending now is probably good for those who did listen to ouchie, basically. So. And you can go back and listen to this too.
Okay. Yeah, the they're fibrinolytics. Fibrinolytics. And natto is, N-A-T-T-O. You have a question?
Difference between a food allergy and a food sensitivity. And then after that, Yvette was asking about the chemtrails, but I don't know much about other than what I read.
Okay, I'll answer that. Okay, but the chemtrails. Back decades ago, the people with the tinfoil hats, the chemtrails, these loonies. Okay, and the government shot it down, and they said it was total, conspiracy nuts. And then it wasn't that many years ago, I heard them, they were talking about the HARP project. And then they were talking about how they've been doing some weather manipulation. And it was just like maybe 2 years ago, listening to some people, experts from certain organizations that were saying, oh yeah, we've got it down and we should have 100% of the weather controlled by 2030. Now, okay, if that's only 5 years away, let me say, they've been doing this for decades, and they talked about this. Oh yeah, the chemtrails, yeah, they were weather seeding. So I remember the day we were going to have an eclipse a couple years ago out in Oklahoma, and so I went out. It's 6 a.m. I'm looking, and it's totally clear sky, as clear as it could be, and we were going to have an eclipse right at like 11:45. And then as I'm standing there early in the morning, I see, oh my gosh, there's these planes going over, and they were crisscrossing the sky. And I counted over 20, I think it was 24 trails. And this is in a very short time. And I go, whoa, what effect is that going to have today on being able to watch the solar eclipse? And by 11:45, it was just cloudy haze over the entire clear sky. That was weather that was not predicted, okay? So anyway, they were bragging about how they can create tornadoes. and they can create this or that. They can alter the climate on the planet. Well, it's all about climate change, this is all man-made. I go, well, yeah, I believe that.
But to answer Yvette's question,
Yeah.
you just got to take care of your body the best we can. I don't think there's any-
As far as the chemtrails?
Yeah, I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
Take care of your body.
Yeah, there was someone that was testifying to Congress about the stuff that they were releasing in this, and they said, "Is this safe? Would you feel safe, taking this or breathing this in?" And he goes, "Nope, it's not. But this is what we're depositing." Okay, well, it's just a little bit. Yeah, but you're doing this year after year after year, and I mean, it's really hard to come up with a study showing, okay, well, this is what happens.
Can you imagine the military wanting that? Like, I don't know if you've been watching the snowstorm in Russia, but it was like, and what's even coming over our Midwest right now in our area. I mean, if the military could begin to control that on other nations too. But your wife had a good question. I know if you guys need to leave, you can just exit, because I know we're getting past our time. But on food allergies versus a food sensitivity.
Yeah.
An allergy, right, is a reaction, where sensitivity is your body
so
sensitive.
most people are familiar with allergies. You take in a food, and say you break out in hives, or you break out in a rash, or you can't breathe, you're wheezing, or your face swells up, your eyes swell. Your eyelids swell. That's an allergy, and that is mediated through histamine. And histamine comes from certain white blood cells, mast cells, and there is a immunoglobulin, that's an antibody that's produced from your immune system. It's called IgE. So those IgE antibodies are specific to certain proteins. Okay? Now, it could be to foods, it could be to you breathe it in. It could be to, animal dander or dust or something like that. But that causes this reaction. It's a lot of it is histamine mediated. So histamine is released. People take antihistamines. Oh my gosh, I've got allergies, so they take an antihistamine. It blocks the histamine receptors. Okay, so you don't have all of this, reaction. You're trying to avoid that. That is an allergy. A food sensitivity, it's not IgE mediated, it's through, for instance, IgG, gamma globulin. There's IgG, there's IgA, IgM, IgD, there's a number of them. So each one is specific for something, but IgG, gamma globulin, that would be an antibody that you would produce, say if you had an infection, and you're going to build an immune response to that so you don't get it again. So say you get mononucleosis, and so you'll get these antibodies, IgM, okay, that's produced. And after a very short time, IgG comes in, IgM goes down, and IgG goes up and stays there. Now, that's against foreign proteins, say like on a virus or on a bacteria, something like that. But what if it were made to foods that you're eating? Well, why would that happen? Normally, the digestive tract, this is around 80-85% of your immune system is hovering around that digestive tract, and it is the one area that you're most vulnerable to. This is where anything could penetrate and get in your body. Well, it's already in your body. No, the tube that's running from here to here is actually outside your body. So inside that lumen of that tube, your intestines, that's not inside your body. It's just running through the middle, okay? So what I mentioned earlier about the microbiome, if you get the wrong bacteria in there, there's inflammation at the barrier. The barrier is broken down. The tight junctions between the cells start getting broken down. There's little like sticky pads between. And some of those protein fragments, maybe peptides, but protein fragments, amino acids, but usually long enough that they can cause an immune reaction. Might be a whole protein, but if it gets through your immune system, it's fair game, and it's going to produce antibodies. So every time you eat this food, you're going to get this reaction from your immune system. And people have no idea that they have food sensitivities. Many times it's their favorite foods that they are, this is their go-to foods. They eat them every single day. And I tell people, I said, you really should vary your eating habits. Don't eat the same foods all the time. Right. But if there is gut inflammation, which we're trying to avoid with healthy eating, if there is gut inflammation, you can get that. So I've had people with crazy symptoms. It could be related to their eczema, or it could be their psoriasis, or it could be their rheumatoid arthritis, or it could be, these aren't the causes. It's just that those will trigger these entities. One patient had uncontrollable perspiration, hot all the time. The only time that he was happy was in the middle of winter outside in northern Idaho with a t-shirt on, okay? And because he was always hot, and he'd already been to immunologists, allergists, he'd been to endocrinologists, been to dermatologists, been to neurologists, and okay, well, we have no idea what's wrong, you just have that problem. Well, this guy was miserable. I had no idea either. But, and I told him I would pray. But it was actually a year later I found out that, I tested him for food allergies. Never heard of such a thing. I mean, as far as causing something like that. But I asked him, I said, do you eat bananas? And he goes, well, yeah. I go, how often? He goes, every day. Every day? Yeah, I eat bananas every day. What about peanuts? And he goes, no, I don't eat peanuts. I go, do you eat peanut butter? And he goes, oh, yeah, peanut butter every day. And I go, really? I go, is that like your go-to food? And he goes, absolutely. He goes, I live on peanut butter and bananas. And and so I said, well, there's one other one on here on your list. I go, it's something. It's not as reactive as those. Those are like through the roof. It was it was brewer's yeast. And he goes, well, what's that in? I go, fermented, beverages. And he goes, oh, I don't drink, so I guess there's no problem with that. And I go, okay. So I took. And first he refused. He goes, I'm not getting off my favorite foods. And I said, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And he did. And it wasn't even 3 days. And this condition that had plagued him for over a decade was gone. And I said, yeah, we'll try it with a little bit, boom, And he said, this is amazing. So I had told him, I said, look, you got to get out of your construction job, and you got to get a job like something that's cold. And he goes, well, I used to work in produce. Perfect. You get into a frozen locker or something. And he did. He went into now he's head over produce in a large grocery chain. But anyway, that's what he did, and he didn't need it anymore, though. He was fine. He was cured. But it was that. I did not expect that. And I can tell you a lot of crazy other stories. But food sensitivities, it could be behind chronic daily headaches. And I treated some lady in New Zealand for, itching. She had itching. No rashes, just itching. And nothing would control it, even antihistamines. So when I took these two foods out, I had to send the kit to the U.S., by the way, because they don't have it in New Zealand. And she came back 3 months later, and I said, oh, hey, how's the itching? She goes, oh, it's gone. Really? And I go, that's wonderful. And she goes, oh, just kind of nonchalant. Well, aren't you excited? And she goes, well, that isn't the good news, doctor. And I go, well, what's the good news? She goes, well, I don't have chronic daily headaches anymore. And I go, oh my gosh, you had chronic daily headaches? Oh, so then she goes on and tells me this, how many neurologists she had, every treatment known to man for headaches. And she says, so my last neurologist told me, we've exhausted everything. You will have headaches for the rest of your life every day. And the best thing is to suck it up and accept it. And she goes, I have not had a headache in 3 months. And I go, oh my gosh. So I was really excited and I was, whoa, gosh, incredible. And she says, but I didn't tell you the really good news. And I go, well, what could be better than chronic daily headache? She goes, I'm 42 years old. She goes, I don't have attention deficit anymore. And I go, oh, I didn't know you had that either. She goes, oh, I had it all my life. I was diagnosed when I was 20. But she said, did you ever see that movie with Bradley Cooper? It was Limitless or something. And I think it was the year before that came out. And I said, yeah, I saw that. And she says, it was like that. He took this pill and his IQ went up like 4,000 or, something like that. And she said, it's like that. My brain is so sharp and alert now. And she said it was due to food. And I said, yeah. I said, I wish you would have told me that because that's one of the things I use in approaching attention deficit disorder or ADHD. I use that. I start off with food as the foundation and trying to get the brain healthy and get rid of that. But I'm not going to say that's the answer every case, but I said, that's where I look. And I said, in daily headaches, I said, that's also something I look at with food sensitivities. So again, I'm just giving you, those are anecdotal examples.
The best way to find out too is to fast for 3 or 4 days and then start adding back some foods. But actually, we're running out of time, so we're gonna have to go just real quick. If there's any, and we're gonna have to answer real quick too. If there's just any last-minute questions, you don't want to forget the vendors. My fault. I thought they were in the lobby. I just found out they're actually next door. The vendors are. So make sure to stop by there afterwards. We're probably gonna have to end in 8 minutes or so. So we're gonna try to answer real quick.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for good prostate health?
Good prostate health. Top 2 recommendations. Don't say diet. No kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no.
On that one, would you avoid meat and dairy for a season?
It's not a bad idea, but again, it's not going to treat everyone.
Yeah.
Trying to there are nutrients and supplements. Okay, I've seen people really respond well to some of these. Okay, be it beta-cytosterol or Pygeum africanum or Urtica doica, that's nettle, stinging nettle. There's
I'll get the spelling for you later.
Zinc. There's a host of things that have been put together to optimize prostate health. But again, to say that there's one, cure-all for every single person. Some things are, there's a higher genetic predisposition in certain men.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of men die with prostate cancer, but not of it.
Well, prostate cancer is a different story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you said
prostate.
Health. Oh, yeah, you're right. That is a different story. Yeah, my fault. All right, next one.
A few weeks ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, and along with this guy's, but for a second time, and I got rid of it in 2019. I was cleared, and now I have it again. I didn't realize it was so resilient. You spoke about a vitamin C that a while ago here.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch the name of that.
The name of?
Well, it's vitamin C intravenous therapy.
I've heard of it, but.
Okay, I can talk to you after we're done here, and I'll tell you where you might look.
Okay, great.
But even to answer, like, if that was something I was receiving, or same thing, I honestly, I know I say this a lot, but I would probably go into a season of fasting to really rekindle, because your body can't heal when we're always eating either. It's energy or fasting and healing. And if we're always, just the fasting, the health, then reintroduce whole God-given plant-based foods, some of the medication you just recommended, introduce that slowly, and it's a process, but something has to be done for your health too in that regard. Yeah, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on autism, and what can we do to help a high-functioning adult?
Oh, a high-functioning adult? Is that what you said?
Yeah. High functioning autism. Have they had it all their life? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's interesting. We had an incidence of autism being like 1 in 10,000. Now it's down to 1 in, 31 children? Okay. Something happened. And there are certain things, that have happened in our culture that,
we can't say or we'll get banned.
Association doesn't mean causation, but there are some things that are very, very closely associated. So anyway, as far as reversing some of that, again, the diet is key, and there are things that you can do. I had some student that was his senior thesis was dealing with autism and the microbiome. And I said, yeah, that's great. I said, there's been a lot of work on that. And he goes, you know about that? And he was stunned because none of the doctors that he had talked with, thought this is bogus. It's like chemtrails, there's no truth. And I said, oh, sure, there's a lot there. We haven't even talked about the gut-brain connection, but, it's bidirectional pathway, but there's a lot of nutrients and things. You can optimize the diet. It's funny that when you get into the severe autistic, these kids will be addicted to the very worst foods that they are sensitive and allergic to. And, well, Johnny only eats that food. He won't eat anything else. And I go, that's exactly the way they are. But if you can get them to eat healthy, I have seen practitioners transform severely autistic to highly functioning to the point where, well, maybe they have Asperger's. We think they were misdiagnosed. This person was severely autistic. Well, that's not possible. Well, it's not an easy thing. It's very, very, very complex. But to say that it's impossible, it's not true. But they're not acknowledging the causes and things that, you need to remove some things from the diet, and you need to optimize that. The other thing, I'll get out here on a limb with, say, like transcutaneous non-invasive vagal nerve stimulation, okay? And, well, the vagus nerve goes up, it goes down, and you can send signals into the brain, and it has to do with microglial activation. And microglial cells are macrophages. Those are white blood cells in the brain. We have macrophages throughout our body, but in the brain, they're called microglial cells, and they're involved with a lot of things. And so you're looking at anxiety, you're looking at depression, you're looking at other cognitive problems, and there's implications for, neurodegenerative diseases that might benefit from this. I'll just say the FDA approved, did I mention that to you before? But when we were on the radio, about the FDA approved the vagal nerve stimulation for drug-resistant depression. Excuse me? I go, can we use that? Just start off with that? Okay. Well, the little devices are still a little too spendy. They're a little costly. I don't know, $300 to $500. They'll probably drop down in price, but it's not that complex. It's not rocket science, but it is actually stimulating through the vagus nerve, and it's going up. But it has implications for the whole GI tract, and we talked about Crohn's. I haven't seen any studies on that, but it has implications there. But when it goes up to the brain, as far as dealing with even autism, I will say, there's not a lot of high-powered studies out there, but there's a lot of implications. These are very simple, non-invasive, non-dangerous things that people could consider. But I start off, again, with the diet.
And what Kennedy, you can research what Kennedy's been saying lately, why they're coming against him. And the problem is what they found is, again, what I said, they added to the adjuvant agents. They go through the brain-blood barrier, and they attach to the brain. And that's why they're thinking the autism is skyrocketed. That's the thought behind it.
Yeah, that's the adjuvants are the
mercury, aluminum, formaldehyde things.
Yeah, and there are ways also of removing those.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Go ahead, real quick.
I know we don't have much time. I want to share an experience I had because I've been sick for decades, and it progressively got worse and worse. I used to have headaches so bad I couldn't talk. I used to have to sit down. So for the last 10 years, it got progressively worse and worse. It got to the point, not just the headaches, I had high blood pressure, like 205 over 116 sometimes. I didn't know I had kidney issues. I had a lot of issues. I couldn't breathe right. So when you said earlier, sometimes you have to ask God. That's what happened to me. In my garage, I was the worst I ever could be. I couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And I just asked God, I said, God, please heal me. Then immediately, without preparing to say, I was made to say I felt, what do I have to do to be healed? So I got up. I didn't have a headache. I didn't get lightheaded like I usually did. Came inside, told my wife, we have to go to the store. So it was mostly diet, and it was peace and all that, but all the ailments I had slowly dropped off over a 4-month period. So my doctor didn't understand, and I told him it's God. He was a man of faith, but he was Catholic. And I saw my doctor every 3 months. So he saw the beginning, and he planted a seed like, you have to eat this, you have to eat this, you have to eat it. I didn't listen to him. I didn't care. My blood pressure would be so bad in your office that the girls would take my blood pressure 4 or 5 times and wanted me to go to the hospital. So with this experience I had, things just started coming to me. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. It was a T system. It was a 2-part T system. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So what I'm saying is, it was a lot of ailments. I passed kidney stones at home. I didn't even know my kidneys were bad. So my body was cleansed over time, and it was God. And my question to you, have you ever heard of anything like this happening before? Because what I'm doing now, I'm documenting it. I wasn't planning on documenting, putting it in the book, but that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to share it with people because I believe it can help a lot of people with a lot of issues.
So his question is, when it comes in, correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to healing, sometimes God will heal, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he'll show things that you need to work on. You need to get this out of your diet. You need to do this. You need to even unforgiveness and bitterness. We didn't even talk about mental toxic emotions. And so I think your question is, has Dr. Paul seen where God has healed somebody over a certain amount of time based on them praying and him directing them? For sure. Oh, yeah. I think so. I mean, sometimes healing is a process.
Yeah. All healing comes from the Lord. 100%. And I've always been aware that he knows what is wrong with this patient. I don't. And that's why I just say, well, I'm just going to wait on you and please help me. I don't know your timeline with this. And he doesn't do it the same way every time. Jesus did that. He sometimes, he made some mud and spit, or he spittle and puts it there. And another time he spit and, and then he spit and he put it on the guy's tongue. And he did things different ways. And gosh, how come, there isn't any set formula, okay? But again, I always look to the Lord as far as being the source of healing. And I've seen him do it over time, over using prayer, using medicine, using natural medicine, okay, in various ways. But some people will say, well, I won't use anything but this. And I go, well, then you're going to say you're going to limit God. You're going to say, you can't do it this way, I refuse. And because God wouldn't do that. Well, he uses a lot of things. But I'm all in for doing things as naturally as I can. As I mentioned, I always start with the diet, the nutrition, okay, and then I build on that and see what else I can find. I try to limit, expensive diagnostic testing and looking at lots of things may or may not help me.
Because a lot of things are nutrient deficiencies, vitamin D and the vitamin K and all those different things. But if you're any parents, you got to go get your kiddos because we're way over time. And then we'll just take one more question. I think back here, we can do two if it's quick. Go quick. Go get your kids, though, if you're a parent.
What is the best thing to do for somebody that has Alzheimer's? They are already eating the way we're talking about, and they're also very thin, so they don't want fast, they're underweight.
Anything at this point that you would do for somebody who has Alzheimer's?
Okay, is it early on Alzheimer's, early dementia? I can't.
Is it early on? They just found out recently? Okay, 4 years.
Are they highly functioning, or are they?
They're still functioning, not able to drive, but still functioning at home.
Yeah, there is a lot of research done. Alzheimer's is not one cause. It is not one disease. And the way medicine has been approaching it, and Big Pharma has been approaching it, they want the silver bullet. It's just like, they're going to focus in on, this particular protein or that, and that's the way we're going to treat it. It's not that. It's due to many, many things. It's almost like all the spokes on a wheel. I mean, there's so many different things that can cause that Alzheimer's. There are inflammatory causes, infectious causes, toxic causes, nutritional, depleted causes, okay, that will lead to neuronal degeneration, and you start getting pruning of all the neurons and no more connections, and it ends up leading to dementia. Now, there are things that people have been doing for quite a while now in trying to reverse this, and I actually know of one neurologist who he was measuring hippocampal volume. Okay, hippocampus, the hippocampal area in the brain is one of the first areas that's hit with Alzheimer's. And this is where you're doing all your critical thinking, your analytical thinking, your type 2 thinking, processing, learning. Okay, very, very important. So that starts shrinking. There's a lot of things, that's another topic, just how you can benefit yourself in healing your hippocampus. But when it comes to them, we measure their hippocampal with MRIs. Now that's only in the research area. So he would do a volumetric MRI measurement, and they're getting it down to, exact amounts of volume, and those are going to shrink. They never get bigger. They never recover. So when he was able to have MRI showing that these actually increased in size, the radiologist said, we must have read this wrong. We've got to change our numbers. So they downgraded these numbers, they upgraded these numbers so that they would be closer, because they said it's impossible. You cannot increase the hippocampi if you have Alzheimer's, especially at this level. So then he took those and he gave them to blind reading radiologists. So they're not going to know which is which, before, after, whatever. Just read the volume. So they went through a whole, cadre of radiologists reading these, and the numbers were even better than the original reading, okay? And people will say, well, that's not possible. Again, his treatment wasn't using, some big pharma drug, and he wasn't in, he didn't have endorsement or funding from them. But there's Yeah, I don't want to endorse someone's
Yeah,
book or
that's true.
something, but I can tell you a name of some resource for that.
Urgent last question? We got to head out. Right up here with the front. Okay, just go quick, please,
I'll
and
be
then
real
with the
quick.
white.
Sure. What causes ringing in the ears? Can you tell me what I need to eliminate from my diet?
Ringing of the ears?
Tinnitus.
But we have to have the quick answer, because I'm getting pressure to
And what
get rid of
causes it, or how do I get rid of it?
Okay. The only thing I found for a real quick remedy was, I've done this with a couple patients, and it was acupuncture, but it didn't last. It was totally back. Okay. The more long-winded answer was DMSO, and I came across a study using DMSO, and it actually decreases. But again, not huge studies. There's nothing dangerous to that, but again, what do we have to offer? Most ENT doctors aren't going to come up with a lot. Once you have that tinnitus, it's very debilitating.
You could get the DMSO online, like dmso.com, and it's a solvent or liquid you mix with water, like 2 parts.
You'd have to look up. You'd have to do a little research as far as going over that. But again, that's not a harmful thing. I don't have fear on that. I only have, fear in being aware of, if you're taking it at the same time of some medication or something, well, you might get super high levels. But other than that, it's
have you tried water fasting for a while? Oh yeah, I'm talking 4, 5, 6 days. I know it's hard, but we were designed to do that, and the body will really heal itself. Actually fasting isn't hard. We're addicted to the things that we're consuming, and that's why it's actually like an addict coming off of a drug. Is why fasting is so difficult. But I would try that, because I had a friend of mine who, ringing his ears all day long, went to doctors, and the fasting after a couple days just silenced it. It was amazing. No, it's not a cure-all. We don't know, but I would. What fasting doesn't cure it. It puts the body in a state to where now the body can heal itself, and it takes away from.
Yeah, and again, what I mentioned about the DMSO, trying to come up with understanding the mechanisms. There's a lot of different things it does inside at the cellular level, and as far as restoring things, even function within the eyes that I mentioned, things that shouldn't have come back, but they actually returned. And a lot of these things were noted by doctors. It was an accidental, serendipitous finding. There, the patient comes in and says, "Hey, my eyesight just returned." No, that's not possible. Well, this led to more doctors looking at this. But again, as I mentioned, you're not going to see a lot of that because it's what?
We got one more question here, and then we'll go to you for the next one. Last.
Real quick, I'm in permanent arrhythmia. I've been fighting it for about 6 months. The cardiologist doesn't have a clue. All my tests are normal, but my blood pressure is fluctuating about 40% along with the arrhythmia. Any idea I cannot get a straight answer. What causes arrhythmia?
Causes the arrhythmia?
Yeah, he's having a heart arrhythmia.
Heart arrhythmia.
Is there any specific type of arrhythmia?
It's varying. My heartbeats, I'll be up as high as 210 over 130, and then drop down as low as 90 over 60.
Are you on medication? Or do you have a lot of caffeine?
Well, that's been the problem. They're just throwing drugs at it. But I'm not vaxxed, and I'm somewhat into biohacking, and it started about 6 months ago. Never had a problem before, and I can't get a straight answer of what to do.
So your heart rate goes up? Okay, your heart rate goes up?
It fluctuates. I mean, like if you put a monitor on
right.
it, it's just constant.
Okay, but it's not.
It never stabilizes.
Okay, but it's a sinus tachycardia that you're describing?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not, okay. There are some nutrients that I could suggest, okay, without looking, too deep into that aren't going to harm you in any way. Okay, you're not dealing with supraventricular tachycardia, SVT, atrial fibrillation. You're not doing. Pardon?
It's AFib.
Oh, you are okay. So it's not.
Luis,
okay.
can you put it closer?
Okay, that's.
Yeah, I'm in constant AFib.
There we go.
Okay, so if you're dealing with AFib, that's a completely different story now. Okay, that's not sinus tachycardia. That is supraventricular tachyarrhythmia. And there are things and nutrients that I've used for that. Okay, there's so many different things that can cause arrhythmias or atrial fibrillation. I mean, even, my gosh, sleep apnea. If that's untreated, people will have that. But just the causes are numerous. But there are some natural substances. I can tell you, not right now, but I can tell you what you can take, and that decreases it. And you may spend more time in what we call sinus rhythm than the atrial fibrillation.
And you had a quick. Oh, that's DMSOstore.com.
Not DMSO.
Perfect, yeah. DMSOstore.com. Thank you. That was good. Any last minute? It was good. Virginia, real quick. Just shout it out.
I work a lot with women between 45 and 65. They are in perimenopause or postmenopause. Sleep, we know, you just said, is kind of
key.
It's the key. Women are struggling with sleep in the change. And sometimes it seems to go away long after menopause. That's why I say after 65. Sleep. Any suggestions?
Are you asking just about sleep, or are you asking about hormones?
I'm really asking about hormones.
Okay. Okay, so with regards to that, oh my gosh.
Maybe about an hour on that one. Maybe he could just share with you. I'll just say Dr. Makari is the FDA, commissioner that it was 2 weeks before 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I think, when he came out and said that they were removing the black box warning, that the FDA released erroneous conclusions and data. This is in 2002, and they're removing that because it was the risk was never there. He's talking about hormone replacement therapy for women.
And this is why most doctors for the last 23 years have avoided that, because the FDA said, well, no, it causes that. And I saw the study in 2002, and I said, that's totally false. It's wrong. I go, I don't know where they're getting that. And it turns out that the FDA, behind closed doors, was discussing this, and they said, we're going to release it anyway. Yeah, but that's unethical. There was a discussion behind closed doors, but they decided we're going to release this data, but it was false. And so now they're kind of reversing that, because the risk of breast cancer was not there. In fact, there was less risk in the women that they kept going for 22 years later. There was less risk of breast cancer in that group than in the control group, okay? Not more risk. And then the same thing with the cardiovascular issues. There was a 48% decreased risk, okay, not an increased risk. So anyway, on that subject, there's safety there, and you need a doctor that knows what they're doing in that. And if you want to find a doctor, you would go to a compounding pharmacy and ask them who is prescribing hormones through you, okay, and that's how you can get that. As far as natural sleep aids, there's a host of.
What about 5-HTP?
Well, I will use GABA, say 600-700 milligrams of GABA at bedtime. I will use magnesium. You can use glycinate or threonate. Threonate is the only one that crosses the blood-brain barrier, but I do use glycinate. Threonate.
So that's magnesium glycinate.
Glycinate.
Gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA.
Yeah. And
I also recommend 5-HTP and L-theanine and valerian root.
And the L-theanine has a very good calming effect, slows the brain down. And then if I do use melatonin, I use, some people do fine, using the standard 3 or 6 milligram or something. Other people that doesn't work for, or they will be awake 2 hours later. In that case, I use physiologic melatonin at like 0.5 to 1 milligram only, and that works for many people. Now, there's valerian root, there's hops extract, there's lemon balm, there's passion flower, there's milk, there's magnolia extract, there is...
With melatonin, not melatonin, is that what you just said? That's the one
melatonin.
you want to be careful with too, because it will start to diminish your own body's production of it if you take it too much.
Okay, where is 95% of the melatonin in your body?
No clue. Gut?
Mitochondria.
Oh, mitochondria. There we go again.
Okay.
That little...
All right. Okay, so you can use, it's not a dangerous thing. In cancer therapies for decades, they've been dosing, 100, 200 milligrams of melatonin. And people say, well, that would just knock you out. It doesn't work that way. But they have used it as an adjunct with cancer treatments.
True.
So, so I just say you got to play with that and know the individual.
Yeah.
I cannot take, if I take it at all, I only take a half a milligram, and that's it.
Me too. It's too strong.
If I take anything more than that, I cannot sleep. It just keeps me awake.
All right, guys, we're going to head out. Let me pray real quick. Lord, we thank you. Joyce, real quick. I was actually just going to say, I know he wouldn't say this, but we can't give out email and phone numbers because he already has his own practice in Oklahoma. So unfortunately, he can't work with, because then he'd have too many people.
Well, why don't you field?
Yeah, I'll field. If you send it to me, I can get it to his office. So you can email me the questions and I can get it to their office. It's just a way to respect that boundary because he already has his own. I'm not even a patient. I have my own doctor here locally. So does that help on that one? Okay. And then let me just pray real quick. Lord, we thank you for this time together. I pray that we would focus on our healing and our health, Lord, more so than ever before, and that we honor you with those two things. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.